Welcome to the Whole Enchilada, a community of high achievers that fight the status quo, rebel against mediocrity, and make life happen. Let's go. Hey, Enchilada Nation, really excited about our episode today. I usually bring one phenomenal guest on at a time, and today you get three phenomenal guests. So I'm really excited. Not only are they guests on the show, but they're partners of mine in business. And not only are they partners with me, but they've all become incredible friends over time. So real quickly, let's run around the room and have you guys introduce yourselves, who you are. Why don't you give us your name, your role, and one favorite ice cream. Go, Robert.
Okay, Robert MacFarlane. I am the managing team leader, CEO of the Keller Williams St. George office here in sunny St. George, Utah. Also realtor, father, husband, son, brother, friend, nephew, and my favorite ice cream is mint chocolate chip.
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's go, Russie.
I'm essentially everything Robert just said in a female form. So I am the team leader here in KW Success, CEO here, mother, daughter, realtor, wife, all the things. And my favorite ice cream is peanut butter with chocolate chunks, or I also really do enjoy a good coffee ice cream.
Ooh.
Always breaking the rules. He said one ice cream, Russie. You gotta always break the rules.
Then I'm gonna go coffee.
Ice cream's hard to narrow down to one.
It is
like
hard.
if I have the option at a place to get 2 scoops, the 2 scoops are different flavors, period.
Yeah.
So, Sabrina.
All right, Sabrina Cicchi. I am the CEO of Exec Assist. I am wife, mother, world traveler, nomad of sorts. My favorite ice cream is vanilla, which is very plain, but that's what I go back to every time if I have to choose just one scoop.
Isn't that what they call you? Isn't that what they call you when you go to the beach in Hawaii? They call you vanilla. Isn't that what they just, isn't that your nickname?
Like that.
Something like
that
that.
would be putting it nicely.
The only time I ever choose vanilla is if I have really good toppings to put on top and mix it in. I can't just do straight vanilla ice cream.
I like vanilla with chocolate sauce. Just
that makes the vanilla good because that makes it chocolate ice cream. All right, so our topic today, not only am I bringing incredible leaders together, we are just wrapped up 2021, rolling into 2022, and we're going to kind of play with one foot in both years. So one of the things I asked everyone to come prepared with is to let me know what was their favorite book that they read in 2021 and why. And as you guys are getting ready to kind of walk us through that, we're going to go in reverse order this time of what we just went. But one of the biggest things we talk about inside of our organizations is the importance of learning for doing sake and not just learning for learning's sake. And there's so many books, so many podcasts, so many things available for us to learn. And a lot of times, a lot of those things are good. And I think one of our jobs right now as entrepreneurs in a crazy world is learning to discern between good and the best, right? So we all just put together our goals for this year, 2022, and there's a lot of great things, good things we could be doing, but what are the most important books and things we should be reading that are in alignment with our goals for this year? So Sabrina, let's start with you. Tell us about your favorite book from 2021.
So my favorite book was actually a series of books in the EOS world. So What the Heck is EOS, Get a Grip, EOS itself, and Rocket Fuel. So kind of all three of them, different perspectives of the same system. And I enjoyed having all of the perspectives.
Awesome. What caused you to choose that series in your reading repertoire last year?
Simplifying the chaos, and that's really what the system of EOS does. And then being able to see the perspective of that system from an employee, from a client, from a leadership, and from a systems holistic point of view.
Awesome. Love it. And that's, I can see from knowing how your world operates, the importance of having that be a topic for this year. So last question for you on the book is, then how did you take that information and apply it?
So a lot of it started with the org chart making tough decisions inside the org chart about who's really best suited for what role based on their skill set, their personality, and the things they like doing, to ensure that everybody likes doing what they're doing inside the organization, and then giving them each clarity in their lanes, the holes that they're plugging that are maybe outside their lanes, and their growth opportunities.
Awesome. Who would you recommend that book to?
Anybody who is in the operations world, who has somebody who has lots of big ideas that are constantly coming at them, and that you need to implement them, or you need to be able to filter before you implement. So, and then how do you filter it down to the rest of the team to implement?
I love that. And I think we're going to see some range of books between Sabrina and Russie and Robert of what they focused on last year that all were in alignment with their role. For those of you that don't know, the company that Sabrina runs, called Exec Assist, is a nationwide virtual assistant administrative support company that is, not only is she good at operations, she's running a company of operations. So learning those skills, applying them, and then trickling them down through the rest of the organization, I'm sure was all part of that process.
It's a chaos tamer, right? Like if you have a big organization that has grown beyond its boundaries, it kind of brings you back to reset it.
Love it. Great job. Russie, you're up.
My favorite book this year was, I'll call it a business book, but it was also, I think, it was just a good life book. So my favorite book of the year was called Believe It by Jamie Kearns Lima. And she, for those of you that don't know, she's the founder of It Cosmetics brand. But I loved this book. I read it because honestly, I can't even remember where I was, but somebody was talking about it and I said, oh, I got to read that. So I decided to listen to it, and I was so glad that I did. It had such great insight on really just her foundation and how she built a business really without ever compromising any of her standards. She stayed very, very true to herself, her authentic self, and was turned down time and time again by large cosmetic companies because of the way that she looked and because of her target model, which was people that didn't look like models. It was everyday people. She had really bad rosacea. But I love it because she's such a smart businesswoman as well. And she tells her story in a very compelling way that is, it's the real life of business, right? It's the hurt, it's the heartache, it's the triumph, it's the tears, it's the behind the scenes crunching, grinding, it's working 20-hour days and maybe seeing her husband for 10 minutes. Like, it's all of those things that she built her business on. And I just loved it. It was such an impactful book. I really did love it.
Oh, I love that. That sounds intriguing to read. It made me think. This morning in my personal morning study, I got turned on to a YouTube video of a young hustling entrepreneur, and to be honest, I was really turned off by the video because it came from that place of, look at me, look how awesome I am, look at everything I've done, making it just seem like they were amazing at putting it all together, and it all just came together for them, and it should be easy for everybody else. And I was just like, what you're portraying is not reality. I think we're seeing more and more of that message resonate with, that you were just talking about, resonate with the entrepreneur right now of, hey, yeah, this isn't all sunshine and rainbows. There's some tough parts to being an entrepreneur that aren't easy, and the rewards show up if you're willing to go through that.
Yeah. One of the things I loved, so one of this, like, it sticks with me, and it was written on my door forever on my little chalkboard on my door, that one of the quotes that she said is, she said, you can victim up or warrior up. You can give up or level up. The up is up to you. And I love that. And that just stuck with me. Like I hear that all the time in my head of like, you can victim up or you can warrior up. Like, it's up to you. And I just love that, because I think there's so many times that people just want to give up when really it's just a matter of they just need to level up. The other piece of it, and then I promise, like, this book really was so good, you should really seriously listen to it. But she got turned down time and time again. She would not, they basically were like, if you go out, so she started on QVC, they're like, if you go out there with the models you have, you will fail. You will not make it. And she said, win or lose, this is my company. I have to be authentic to myself and my beliefs, and I'm not going to change it. She was the highest selling cosmetics line ever in QVC. And she ended up still getting turned down again by a really huge cosmetics company that told her, no one will buy cosmetics from someone that looks like you or is your weight. And then she went on to sell the #1 largest transaction ever when L'Oreal bought her product.
Wow.
For cosmetics companies. So yeah, it's just a really, truly inspiring story of someone who just had so much clarity on where she was going and her purpose and wouldn't falter on it. I loved it.
Love it. So tell me a little bit about why and how you chose that book, because you're not in the cosmetic industry, right? You're a consumer, you're a cosmetic consumer. Yeah. But this isn't in your realm of business, right? We're in the real estate world, you're in the leadership world. So what caused you to be like, this book is relevant for me right now?
Well, for me, I think most people who know me know, I believe in women empowerment, and I love to see a strong female entrepreneur, first of all. And I really can't remember where I had heard about it. I think I just read a blurb about it on something else that was just saying how this is a great, it's a feel-good book disguised as a business book, basically. And so I thought, gosh, I do yes, it's not in the real estate world, but I very much run a business. And I think that in a world that we deal with a lot of people who are sometimes inauthentic, or they lack clarity, or they want to mask to be, they're chameleons of whatever they need to be. That really resonated with me, because I think that sometimes people forget that it doesn't matter. It just matters if you're authentic, and people can see that. People can see if you're truly care and if you're authentic. And I loved that part about her.
Awesome. I love that. And I love how you were talking about the importance of being authentic, because that's part of my word for the year, which we're going to come back to in a minute. But let's shift to Robert. Robert, you're up. Favorite book, 2021.
The Road Less Stupid. Come
on. Yes, I hoped you were going to say that.
Yes. Such a great book. The rest of us, if you're listening to this and not watching it, the rest of us instantly laughed, because we've been hearing Robert quote this book all year long. And I haven't got tired of it, which tells you how much I love the book.
There's so much stuff in it. And that's really I could make it mine next year for a bunch of other different reasons, right? It's because it segments out not only just being a business, entrepreneur, but it's the thought process around life, right? It's it's so analogous. We're hyper-focused as business owners into having to control these systems, right? It's the systems and models, right? Is what when you fundamentally break it down, which is the EOS. I think Rocket Fuel talks a lot about this too, is it's a very simple system, and it's the same in our family life as it is in our personal friendships and as it is in our business. It's systems and habits that we create in our life. There's a dumb way of doing that, and then there's a not dumb way of doing that, and the road's been paved before us. We don't have to create it on our own. And that's why I love that book. Keith Cunningham, he's a genius.
So good. And one thing is, if it's a good read, but it's a great listen too.
Yeah, he's good.
Just the way he says things is just he says it straight and as it is. Simplify things. We live in a world where we tend to overcomplicate everything, right? And he's like, no, it's not that hard. And I love that he talks about these bumper stickers in it, right?
Yeah.
So
put it on a bumper sticker.
Yeah, tell us about the bumper sticker. Why does he keep saying put it on a bumper sticker?
It's all about simplicity and making it as simple as possible, right? What's the catchphrase that you could come up with in your life to kind of trigger a thought? And then we're going to go back. We're going to go to words and how the words of the year are going to trigger what our purpose is for the year, right? But I think he puts all these things on a bumper sticker because the thought process is, when you think about something long enough, as complex as it might seem, you'll be able to boil it down to a bumper sticker. You can get it on a one-liner and be like, I can understand this in a simple sentence, right? Something like that.
Yeah, and I love that. And throughout the book, it teaches a lesson, and then he puts it on a bumper sticker, gets it really clear, really simple. This is one of those, I have a handful of books that I can basically reread portions of it and still get value out of it without having to read the whole book, right? I'll just go back and open it up, reread portions of the book, or more highlighted, and it's those specific lessons which are just timeless and solid. Great choice. How did you choose it?
It was just the obvious one. I mean, I think I've gone through, you had made the statement of learning to do versus learning to learn. Did you say that? Is that what you said? And I'm like, I never really thought about it specifically in that way. Because if you think about, there's a book called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek.
Yep.
It's a great theory book, and it's a great book around wondering and how to put it into practice a little bit. There's a little bit, the Golden Circle, I think, is a better book for practice and doing versus kind of a theory and an understanding. So for books that I can implement in my daily life and implement in my business, The Road Less Stupid all day long.
Love it. Love it. Great book. Okay. Thanks for reporting on your books for 2021. Oh,
what about your favorite book?
Yeah. What the heck?
You're going to call me out.
Yeah.
My favorite book of 2021.
Shameless plug.
No.
He's writing a book, everybody. He's going to write a book.
No.
This is a good one. This is a good one.
No, the Motivation Manifesto. The 9 declarations to claim your personal power, which this book for me, there was something magical about this book. Probably the most beautiful book I've ever read. And I made a point for several sections of this book to get out into nature by myself and read it out loud. So if some hiker came by, I was out there, the guy going crazy, reading the book out loud, just because the words are so beautifully put together. Just the sound of them was just like really touched me, which sounds crazy, but this book is amazing. So any of you that have not read the Motivation Manifesto, it is all about learning to claim the personal power that's within you, not the normal motivation of rah, get things done, but it's more, there is a innate power within you that can and should be unlocked, but you're the only one that can get it done. And really phenomenal book.
That's a good one.
Close second for me was this one. Stillness is the key.
I need to read that one.
Anything by Ryan Holiday is amazing. All right, so lots of books read by all of us, all of our listeners too, this last year, which is phenomenal. We all spent a bunch of time over the last couple of weeks putting our goals together for 2022. We've got clarity on what we want to accomplish. And then one of the things we talked about after we set our goals is who do we need to become to make those goals a reality. So it's not just about putting those goals on a piece of paper, it's about becoming something along the way. And a lot of that is about how are you going to grow as a person, even more so than how are you going to execute on the plan. A lot of times if we're setting goals we've never achieved before, we've got to do things we've never done before. And the reason we've never done those things is because we don't have the skill set, the habit, the resources, or whatever it is, which means something has to change within us or about us right now to be able to execute on that goal. And so reading the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, all of those things coming into this year are going to help you become that person. And I really love this idea that I don't know when the first time I heard about it, a couple of years ago, people started talking about choosing their word for the year. And if identifying one word of either motivation or action that really tied them into the becoming part of their goals so they could execute on it. So we're going to move into a conversation around this idea of choosing a word to represent the year for you. So Russie, I know you had some conversations around this week with people that you lead. Kind of kick us off. Where did you first learn about this idea of choosing a word, and why do you think there's some power behind it?
Can I jump in real quick though? If you're listening or watching on Facebook, drop your word of the day in the comments, because I think we should get some engagement, maybe your book and your word of the day too, as you're listening. So we don't get too far away. If you're listening right now, drop it in there and let's see what you got.
Love it. Let's do it.
Love it. I first heard of word of the year, probably, I feel like I was at a Women's Council of Realtors event maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And they had a keynote speaker that came and just talked about the power of your words, right? Like we already know our words are super powerful. I hated affirmations at first, and now I'm a total firm believer in affirmations. And so this was just, it resonated with me when they talked about it. They talked about kind of the journey on how to find your word. And so probably 4 or 5 years ago, I attended something and I thought, man, that makes a lot of sense. And so from then on, I had a word of the year.
Awesome. Love it. What was your word for 2021?
So this is funny. We talked about this actually in our vision board class. And in 2021, I started out the year with one word, and I never do this, but I did not connect with the word. So I started out the word that I started out with was relentless. And I just didn't connect with it. Like, it felt like it was not right. It wasn't the right timing. It sent a different message to my brain than the way that my brain wanted to hear it. And so I didn't actually change to another specific word, but it turned into more of a slogan of meet people where they're at, because I feel like 2020 was a year of change and growth and healing for a lot of people, and people were confused. And I think that it was kind of all over the place. And so I really tried hard in each moment to bring the best that I had, but meet them where they were at, instead of being so relentless with what I thought, because I think it's really easy to stand outside and go, well, if you just do this, everything's going to be okay. But sometimes meeting people where they're at makes a bigger impact. So mine wasn't just a word last year. Mine was more of a little slogan.
I like that. Just like you had to choose 2 ice cream flavors when we said one, you had to choose a slogan instead of a word for last year.
An extra.
So just giving you a hard time. Let's talk about 2022. What's your word for this year?
So my word for 2022 is consistency.
Love it. Tell me a little bit about why and how you got there.
So as I was thinking through, I kind of try to come up with my word as I'm setting my goals for the year. And I'm coming up with, where do I want to go? Who do I want to be this year? What's my focus and my intention? My word a couple of years ago was intentional. And that was everything I did. I wanted to make sure I was walking into it with intention. And this year, as I was looking at my goals, I have some big goals. And so a lot of the pieces that need to come into place for those goals to happen, not just for me, but for the team, the people that I lead, I realize there's a lot of areas that I just need to be more consistent. And it's not just like, I always try to choose a word that's not just work related or just family related. I try to pick a word that kind of is consistent across all your areas of your life. And even as I'm looking at my relationships with my family and my husband and my kids, and thinking of things that I want to do to improve those relationships as well, there's just some key consistent pieces that we need to be in place. So that's where the word came from.
I love it. I love it. Consistency really is, we hear Gary Keller to say all the time that you have to get comfortable with the monotony of success, right? A lot of times it's not creating new things all the time. It's recognizing what are the most important things and being consistent with them over and over and over and over again. And I love that you brought in some personal examples with that word too, because that's the same word for both what you're trying to accomplish in business and what you're trying to accomplish in your personal life. Consistency. I love it. Sabrina, word for 2022.
Is challenge.
Tell me a little bit more.
So challenge myself, but a lot of it is going to be challenging the world of business that we're in and the people on my team around me to kind of step up or maybe look at themselves in a different light as to what they're doing with our team. Last year was kind of a quiet year, I would say, in my life, like as far as we moved the year before across the ocean, right? We got to Hawaii, which has been a very lockdown situation since we got here. So not our normal like travel, go. So like last year was a very like consistent year, doing the same things over and over again. And this year we need some more challenge back into our world. My family and personally, the business and the team around me definitely needs to be pushed and challenged a little bit more this year.
I love that you picked that word. It's funny. I love the power of words, because words can have either a positive connotation or a negative connotation to the person, right? How many times do you hear people say, oh, it's challenging, or I have some challenges I'm dealing with? In both of those scenarios, they're using that word in a negative connotation way, right? You instantly know they're using it in a negative way. I loved there was 2 ways I heard you say the word challenge as you described it, and both of them were in a positive connotation of the word. And one of them was as it relates to you challenging yourself to grow to the next level. but also I love that you brought it in from your leadership standpoint, who you lead dozens of people to say, it's my responsibility to also challenge them to get to the next level. So I love that you looked at it. We talk about setting goals and picking a word that's going to help you across all aspects of your life. And I love that you looked at it from both from a personal growth standpoint and also from your responsibility as a leader of what you're going to do for your people this year. I love that.
Well, I really thought about it when we started talking about this episode, because I kind of been back and forth on a couple of things of like what I want from this year. But as I started looking at all of it, with my kids, my husband, business, friends, like that's really what it comes down to. It's like maybe not adventure, but challenge. Like there are things that aren't going to be adventurous, but they're going to be hard. And I look forward to like having that tough experience to move through the next level.
Yeah. And I think that's a great example too, right? One of the things we'll talk about in a second is having you guys give some counsel for people on how to choose their word. It could have been easy just to choose the word adventure, but that doesn't cross-pollinate the way the challenge does, right? But challenge cross-pollinates with adventure. It goes one way, but not the other. Love that. So yep. I love that you put some thought into that. Robert, what you got?
Discipline.
Love it. So before you tell me why you chose discipline, I'm going to share with our listeners real quickly before we launched. What did you tell me about what you what you thought about this idea of choosing a word for the year?
Well, so the setup was Marcus said, I think we've all talked about, we've done this in the past, right? You guys have chosen a word of the year before. And my response was, yes, I have made fun of people who have chosen words of the year before. Yes, I have made fun of those people. I have not up until this year. This is the first word of the year I've ever had. So we'll do an episode in 12 months and we'll see how it went. How about that?
That episode will either be reaffirming the power of picking a word, or you can take the whole episode to make fun of everyone that chose a word.
I think there's personality types in here that might agree with me and then some that might not, right? I think the behavioral assessments come into play with picking your word of the year. However, there's a lot of advantages to triggers, and there's a book called Triggered, I think, Marcus, that you just brought up to me the other day. Is that what it's called? Triggered?
Triggers,
and Triggers. And Brendan Burchard talks about triggers in The Habits of Highly Successful People. And you were brought up the Motivation Manifesto, which is written by Brendan Burchard. And a lot of people don't actually know who he is, even though he's widely known in higher, Forbes top 100 companies as one of the top coaches out in the planet. And one of the things he talks about in the Habits of Highly Successful People is triggers, is creating things in your life that are going to trigger emotional and action out of you, right? As you walk through a doorway, or as he walks through a doorway, in his mind, he thinks bringing the joy. He wants to bring joy into the room, every room that he walks into, and that's a trigger. So anytime he walks through a doorway, that's a trigger for him to think about. And I think discipline and having a word specifically is that when we connect it to an emotion, we connect it to a plan and an action that we're going to do throughout the year, and we can remind ourselves of that, we can create this trigger for us. And I think, Russie, that was a great point that you made, is if it's not resonating with you, there's no reason to keep leaning into something that's just not working, right? Or keep leaning into something that it's not. When we sit down in our thinking time, we think through what is going to be the best way of reminding me what my action is, what my plan is, what my goals are. If in that thinking time you think it's one thing, and then when you put it into practice it doesn't work, that's what the next thinking time is for, is to go back to that and be like, if this isn't working, what's the strategy around what the purpose of this word is? So I appreciate that you've gone through and not made it something you're held to, right? It isn't an anchor that you have to go to, but we want to create an anchor out of this word, right? I think that's the purpose of having a word for the year, is you're creating this anchor, you're creating a trigger for in your mind when you think of the word, when you see it, when someone says it, it's bringing you back into focus for what's important to you, right? Or what your game plan is for the year. And so discipline, when I was a kid, when I went to a military school, a boarding school. And so at 15 years old, I went, and my first, actually the first meal I had there was a breakfast. And so we got up 6 o'clock, It's actually 5:30, got up, we ran. By 6 o'clock, we were at the mess hall, and everybody stands at their table and everybody waits, and everybody has to be quiet. Nobody's allowed to move around. And we'll stand there until everybody's not moving. And then everybody will start yelling if somebody's moving, stop moving around, or stop talking. So then everybody gets quiet. And then the adjutant will say, oh, regiment. He'll say, regiment, take seats. I've forgotten what he says until now. But everybody yells, the entire school yells, discipline. And we all sit down. We have to sit down quick and stop moving. And if we don't do it fast enough, we have to stand back up. He'll say, on your feet. Everybody got to stand up, get quiet again, make us sit down again. We'll have to yell, discipline. We'll sit back down real quick. So every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I did that for 5 years. And it's interesting how, like, I go back to that story as a story, but I don't think about the word as much as I think I probably should have, right? I think if I would have connected discipline differently, there was a statement I was reading about the word. There's like 1,000 opinions. When you say the word discipline, there's 1,000 things that comes up, right? Punishment, obedience, rules, enforcement, boring. You know, is discipline boring? Is it rigid, right? What are the different sides to it? And I think as a kid, I thought of discipline way differently than I do now, right? And I think a discipline is like, you know, as a human, constantly we're being pulled into all these different directions, right? And we got to have self-mastery. We got to have self-discipline. I'm going through the 6 personal perspectives, Marcus, as you know, and that self-mastery and that discipline, right? It starts inward and then it goes outward. There's no way to do it otherwise. If we don't start with our own self-mastery and our self-discipline, we can't take it out to everybody else.
Yeah, I love this. And I love that you brought up the experience you had with your military school coming up, because I was going to bring it up if you didn't, because it's interesting to me again, where like me knowing that about you, I wouldn't have guessed that discipline was going to be your word this year, because it seems like that'd be something like, oh, it makes sense that Robert would already have discipline in his world. He went to 5 years in this military school. So don't let any preconceived notion of what you feel like you should have had in your life already doesn't apply today, right? Because discipline is something that we can re-hone into at any given time. But I love the way you described that. I think there's a lot of power in that word. So let's talk a little bit about what advice, and Robert,
one more thing. Yep. What about your word?
Oh, God. keep pulling me in. Thanks, Russie.
I've been dying to know what your word is this year.
I want to make it all about you guys. So my word for this year is actually a Chinese character. That's actually, I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but I pronounce it like Wu Wei, which is WU-WEI. And the loose expression of it is effortlessly expressing the best version of yourself. Effortlessly expressing the best version of yourself, which is really interesting. There's a couple different definitions of it, but I really liked the idea of any situation you face, like really not only showing up strong, because that's something I feel like I show up. I always show up when I go to a meeting, but am I being the best version of me effortlessly? And so that's my focus this year, of just saying, how am I have so much clarity on who I am and how I want to show up and how I want to contribute, that it's effortlessly for me. And it's the expectation that that's how I show up. So that is my word for this year.
I love it.
It's interesting as you look back over the last couple of years. 2 years ago, my word was focused acceleration, because I knew that there were a lot of things that had to get done that year. And as you guys know, we launched several businesses that year. So focused acceleration was that year. Last year for me, it was simplification, which I know will make you guys laugh, because you guys operate in my world on a day-to-day basis. And I tend to be the person that makes everything in the opposite of simple. But last year, I really tried to focus on how do I simplify things? And in some elements we did that. And this year it's Wu-Wei for me.
Love it.
So let's talk for a minute. If you guys were going to give some advice to our listeners today, and hopefully they feel inspired to think through their word of the year, what advice would you give them on how to pick that word?
I can go first on this if you want to.
Yeah, I don't think I'm allowed to give the advice on picking
this in one of my meetings. So
hey,
yeah, this is out of my wheelhouse. I'm a first timer like everybody else on here if they have.
Okay, Russie and Sabrina, let's get your take on it.
So for me, I think it's something that I always tell people to kind of think through, like, what's a challenge that you want to overcome, or what's a goal that you have, or what's something that you're passionate about. What brings you joy? Is there areas they want to improve on? And today we took it kind of a little bit further and said, okay, as we're thinking through those, and then I always have a list. Like, the thing is, I think it feels a little, at first it can feel a little hard to like go, well, what's that word going to mean to me, right? Like, I love that discipline and challenge both could be either positive or negative. So it's figuring out what that word means to you. And then today we kind of took it a little bit further to say, when you're waking up and it's a perfect day and your challenges are behind you, or the thing that you are energized about or you're passionate about, and you're waking up that day, what's a word that's going to help you just kind of clarify and bring clarity to how did you get to where you are waking up that way? So.
Awesome. I love it. Sabrina, what advice do you have?
I think that it should be something that excites you. You know, like when you wake up in the morning and you think about your word for the year, is it something that you're like, all right, like, what am I going to do today to like fulfill something inside of this vision that I have and meet the expectation of this word? And I think we're all in different places depending on where we are in life and what's happening around us, right? And so it's just important to make sure that whatever that is, it excites you. It's something that you're, even like for me, it's a chase. Like I just want something to chase this year.
I love that. I think it's, and I think we need to give ourselves permission that if it doesn't excite you, like test it out, right? There's nothing that, like, I joked with these guys earlier today that every year I get my word of the year tattooed on my back, and then I get the previous year crossed out while I get the new one. You're not concreting this in stone for life. Do your best to choose the word that is going to fire you up. And I love, Russie, that you gave the example that you picked a word that didn't fire you up and you realized it wasn't the word for you, and giving yourself permission to change, because it should excite you. When you see it, when you read it, when you feel it, when you see it on your binder, when you see it in your journal, it should reconnect you with all the things you're focused on this year and re-energize you to make that happen. The advice that I would give is actually schedule some time to sit down for 20, 30 minutes, have your goals out in front of you and say, these are the goals in which that I am committed to accomplish this year, both on a business front and a personal front. And then on a piece of paper, write down descriptive words of the person that you know could get those things done. Not the things that describing you, but describing the person that is going to achieve all of those goals. And I think it will be interesting as you do that, you'll start to see some patterns show up in those words you're writing down. Out of those words, circle a few of them that really resonate and stick out to you, and then narrow that down to a few words, and then practice with a couple of those, and maybe have conversations with a coach or a mentor, and then pick one from that word. And again, I think go through that process will help you narrow it down, that more than likely you'll have the word that fires you up for the year. But again, give yourself permission, and you've already got a backup of 2-3 other words that could be the word that you fall back on if that one isn't the one that fires you up and keeps you moving forward. Any thoughts from you guys?
Just the last thing, if you're going to get a Chinese character tattooed on your back, make sure they know that character is correct. I've heard lots of stories about Chinese characters, and that's not what it means. So if you get that on your back, Marcus, make sure they know what they're doing. All right.
Right. I think that's like the easiest prank of all time, of being like telling people, oh, this actually means this. And the tattoo artist is laughing while they're doing it. Like, I know this doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any last words of encouragement from you guys? Some of the most powerful leaders I know in my world. If you had to give one last piece of advice, regardless of the word, regardless of the books you're reading, to help people get fired up and excited about 2022 in 1 or 2 sentences, what do you got to tell our people?
It's a journey. Yeah, I'm going right at it. It's a journey. Like it's just one step. There's going to be another goal next year and another goal after that and another goal after that. We got to play a long game in life, right? I'll go back to Simon and talk about this infinite game. Is we can't just quit on our goals because it got hard or because we failed out of the gate or if we stumbled. It's a journey. So you got to get connected to the journey, know that things are going to be the world's going to come in and try to blow that whole thing up, right? Plans are great. Road less stupid. You can plan all day. It's in the planning that there's value, because the plans are always blown up. So it's a journey. Take it a step by step.
I love that. And the journey, literally in today's fast-paced world, you got to recognize that the journey is not year by year, it's hour to hour, right? Like within one day, I can have a phenomenal hour and then a challenging hour, but they're both equally important in a journey. Yep. Love that advice. Sabrina.
I would take it back to actually a lot about Russie's book and authenticity, right? Like when you are working and living in an authentic way, doing your business in an authentic way, it's easy, right? Like you believe in what you're doing, you like coming to work, you like working with the people that you're working with, and it really takes out all of the other in your world. So authenticity is really probably my second word of the year, right? Like showing up in that the way that you want to show up, not the way other people expect.
Love it. Russie, bring us home. What advice do you have for us?
I'm just going to go with the advice that I give a lot of people, that I feel like you got to give yourself some grace too. So it's a journey. You got to be authentic. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. And it all goes back to, like I said earlier, like you can victim up or warrior up, you can give up or level up. But at the end of the day, the people that I think that I appreciate being around the most are the people that are willing to step right back up tomorrow. And sometimes you got to just say, you know what, it is what it is. And I'm willing to still give it hell today. So give yourself some grace and stay present where you're at.
Love it. Thank you guys for not only taking the time today to share some of your knowledge with me and our people, but more importantly, I just want to tell you guys, thank you for being part of my world. I love being in business with you guys, both as partners and friends, and appreciate you guys being on. And for the rest of you listeners that are listening to this, I hope you felt the excitement, the authenticity from these powerful leaders. I challenge you, identify your word, get that done now. We're a handful of days into 2022 already. And I think all of us could make a list of some victories we've already had, and all of us could make a list of some challenges we've already had. And going back to Robert's advice there, that's just part of the journey. And we're committed, and I'm committed here through the rest of the year with the whole enchilada to continue to be a partner with you on that journey, because I want to win. I want Robert to win. I want Russie to win. I want Sabrina to win. I want us to win together. And I want you as a listener of the whole enchilada, part of our network, to win with us. So keep going, keep pushing on the journey, and don't forget, go live life on your terms.